Hey everyone, and welcome to Comic Breakdown. If you guys are new to the channel, please do me a favor and hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you're not missing any of the content that we have coming out. Because today we're going to be finishing up the rest of Future State, at least the issues that came out this week. And with this video, we're going to be covering Future State Swamp Thing, issue number 2. Now, Swamp Thing takes place in the year 4500, long after most of the events have transpired with the Future State event. And what we see is Swamp Thing canvassing the Earth, looking for signs of human beings. And in this time, he created his own sentient beings. And finally, after their long search, they found a human. And he goes to take them to the compound where the rest of the humans are at. Now, if you want to get completely caught up on everything that's been coming out with Future State, go ahead and check out the link in my description as well as the top of this video. It'll get you completely caught up on every single issue that has come out of Future State so far. And with that being said, let's dive into this issue. Alright, so jumping into Swamp Thing issue number 2, we pick up 18 miles north of Eureka. And they're with the human that they found, and he's leading them to the Star Labs fortress, the last stronghold of mankind. And what seems to happen is some kind of coup, because all the leaders are no longer here and somebody had taken over. But there's still people inside that are willing to fight. And so Swamp Thing has to make the decision to have his people that he's created go in there and fight. And this is when we go inside of the Stars Lab facility. And we see Atticus and we see Woodrue. And Atticus lets Woodrue know that Obsidian is ready. Now, Woodrue had found him in the aftermath of the Great War. And he keeps saying that Obsidian's going to be their savior. That everybody is going to be free, finally. Now, he's sounding very much like a cult leader at this point. Not necessarily that the people are going to be flourishing, but it sounds more like he just wants everybody to die. And that in turn is freedom. And he has some really deep dialogue. And he says there's only one eternal truth. And it's that they know too much. Most creatures are content to be born, to live, to eat, to reproduce and die, but not human beings. Our intelligence takes us beyond our natural bounds to such superior awareness in a world that gives literally nothing. No matter how far we move from the natural world, the fundamental truth is inevitable. No matter how intelligent we become, we are trapped by its external cage for all of eternity. And so his plan is to take them away from their natural bounds and make them one with the cosmos, if you will. And so the battle breaks out, and Swamp Thing and his people attack. And they're taking on these guards, and we can see that they are vastly superior in almost every way to human beings. He's designed them to adapt, to overcome, and they break into the facility. As they make their way through the door, they shoot an incendiary at Swamp Thing, but obviously it doesn't work. You know, humans have tried a million different ways to kill Swamp Thing, and no matter what, he always stands or he always comes back. And entering into the lab, he sees Woodrue, and he asks Woodrue, like, what have you done? And we see him take off his cloak. And he's part human, part the green, but the green rejected him because it saw how little he valued humanity. And the green turned away from him because of that. And this is when Woodrue shows us the great destroyer Swamp Thing that was unleashed upon the world. So it looks like Swamp Thing is partially responsible for whatever happened to humanity, because he nearly wiped humanity off the face of the planet. At least that's what Woodrue is telling us. And so Woodrue's plan all along is to use Obsidian and turn the sky black, to block out the sun and to starve the green so that it can never live again. And with that, Swamp Thing kills Woodrue. And now with all of this done, everybody asks, what now? Because there's no way of stopping Obsidian from blowing at this point. The switch has already been pulled, if you will. Now, Swamp Thing's people, they'll be perfectly fine because they can adapt to the new environment. Or at least so it seems. But humanity, they're not gonna live. And this is when Heather, one of Swamp Thing's closest, asks him if he's really going to choose them over his own creation. They're violent, they're angry, they literally wipe themselves from existence for the most part due to the violence. And you want to sacrifice our existence for theirs. And Swamp Thing lets her know, like, if I can give my body to protect them, I will. And this is where she goes to punch Swamp Thing, but only to have her hand broken because of it. And then he grabs her hand, and we see her start to disintegrate as Swamp Thing apologizes to her. And she goes down to her most innocent form, and she asks for him to answer the question. The question if they are worthy of his love. Why them over us? And he says, you know, because they are capable of being more. And he believes that's what it means to have a soul. The ability to transcend the bounds and attempt to be more. People like Woodrue looked for transcendence outside of themselves. But these people, these may have done. They may have done terrible things. But within them lies the potential for goodness. To be so much more. And Swamp Thing's people were never designed with a soul or anything like that. He built them, and they would always be exactly who they are, exactly who they were meant to be. And Heather was meant to be his innocence, his doubt, his ambition. But they can never be more than what he programmed them to be. They were all perfect in their own way. And this is when we see all of Swamp Thing's people start to disappear. And Obsidian explodes. And the night sky turns black. And this is when Swamp Thing reaches to the sky, branches turning into a trunk, turning into the giant tree that will now house all of what is left of humanity. At least until the sky's clear, whenever that may be. Could be generations. But Swamp Thing essentially made himself the tree of life. And so under his canopy and his roots, humanity thrives. They rebuild. And when the people come out, their fate rests entirely in their own hands. And someone asks if they will ever see Swamp Thing, the one from the stories. But all it takes is a seed, a stem, some earth and some water, and a little bit of sun. And that will be the end of this issue. And that closes out Swamp Thing Future State. Honestly, this is probably one of my more favorite lines from the Future State so far. Swamp Thing has been a really, really interesting line. I like seeing the post-apocalyptic where there's really not much humanity left, and somehow Swamp Thing's been held responsible for this. Now, maybe it was of his own fruition, or maybe he was under the control or possession of something else. Who knows what could have happened? But what we do know is Swamp Thing is more than likely responsible for the death of most of humanity. We can only assume that humanity took it to the brink, and the Green could no longer hold back its rage and resentment for humanity. At least that's my takeaway from it. It's just really unique also to see him create his own sentient beings. Sentient beings that are literally in his own image. You know, for a brief time, he was literal God. He was the creator, the Alpha, the Omega. He created an entire civilization vastly superior to human beings in almost every aspect of the way. Besides the fact of them being unable to grow past their bounds, because at the end of the day, he doesn't know how to create a soul or even where a soul comes from. So having the ability to create one is almost impossible. Now, a lot of people, suggest that it has to do with personality and subconscious and the ability to think and all of these things combined, but as it stands, Swamp Thing just doesn't have the knowledge or the ability to replicate what human beings are. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you haven't checked out Comic Breakdown and More podcast, be sure to go check that out. Available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Available every Friday with a new episode. If you live in the Medford, Oregon area, be sure to go check out Rogue City Comics. One of the best comic stores in the area, I guarantee it. They got the latest comics, some really awesome gallery statues and stuff like that, busts, old comics, tons and tons and tons of old comics that you can go through. They do pricing regularly. Go ahead, go check them out, and until the next video.